yeah. You know it, you love it. Woo-hoo-hoo. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? Nick DiVirgilio here. Welcome back to Groovy Thursdays. I picked a classic one for this week. We're at groove number 43. One of the all-time progressive rock classics. I had to do it. This is Watcher of the Skies from the Genesis record Foxtrot. Phil Collins, On Fire. What a great groove. It's one bar in 6/4 that repeats. So it's not a lot to learn, but it's a lot to play. So let's get into it. The groove's in 6/4 at 125 BPM. I say 125 BPM because, like a lot of these old grooves from the old records in the 70s, I'm assuming the guys did not play to a metronome or a click track. So it starts a little bit slower than this, and it sort of speeds up, and it's around 125, and throughout the song, it hovers around 125. I think since this groove is a lot of 16th notes, in these grouping of 16th notes, that 125, it's a challenge to play it at that speed and groovy at that speed. So too much faster than 125 is really not necessary, because the song sort of loses its backbeat. It really does have a backbeat within this funky groove we're going to get into right now. Another thing that's cool about this groove is that your feet, your kick drum, and your hi-hat foot play the same thing. And then your two hands playing a different rhythm, but they play the same thing as well. So there's not a lot going on as far as all four limbs doing something different. Two limbs do the same thing, and then the other two limbs do the same thing. The hardest part of this groove is what you play in your hands, for sure. So let's talk about that rhythm. We're utilizing lots of 16th notes in this groove. Lots of the upward 16th notes, like the E's and the U's and that kind of thing. So what's happening here is on the first beat, you play all four 16th notes. On the second beat, you play the E, the second, and the the last 16th note. You do the same thing on beat 3, the E and the Then on beat 4, you play the E and the and, so the second and the third 16th notes, 16th notes. Then on beat number 5, you play the first 3 16th notes, 1 E and then you do the same thing on beat 6, 6 E and. Before I get into vocalizing this groove for you, I'd like to quickly talk about how I think this groove should be played, because I've seen a lot of folks throughout the years play this groove, and what they're playing is technically right. I just don't think it's quite right. The reason is you got to be able to play that main groove with your hands individually, not between the hands. Here's what the groove sounds like on the hi-hat when you play it between both hands. See, the rhythm's there, but it doesn't have the special sauce in it. You got to be able to play it with each hand individually. Here's what the hi-hat groove sounds like with just the one hand. What makes that special is really those first 4 16th notes of the groove. Playing one E and a with both hands at the same time. At 125, it's a little bit hard to play 4 16th notes that fast. Then you have to skip right into playing the E and the of beats 2 and 3. Once you get to the end of the groove, the 3-note chunks on 5E and 6E are actually pretty easy. It's that 4-note chunk right at the beginning that it's a workout for your fingers. And your two hands have to do it at the same time. You don't want flams here. I guess you could have flams if they're sort of musical and every so often. You know what I mean? Like Tony Williams kind of flams. But most of the time, you're going to play both your hands at the exact same time with no flams. So do what you can, but if you have to slow this groove down a little bit to get this pattern out nice and solid, no flams between your hands, go for it. It's no big deal, and you can always speed it up as you go. All right, let's quickly vocalize this groove, nice and slow, because it's hard to get all of those 16th notes out kind of while singing. So it's like this. Here we go. Nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. Ba 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 la ba 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 ba. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 3 E and 5 E and 6 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 5 E and 6 E and. Doesn't have the same feeling when you sing it out like that, but when you get up to speed on your kick, it's so cool. And when you put that together with the bass playing the same rhythm, with the guitar playing the same rhythm, with the organ playing the same rhythm, Man, it's so cool. And then you move it around your kit. See, he starts on the hi-hat closed, and as it builds, it sort of percolates, he adds in the snare drum, but the hi-hat opens up a little bit and gets a little washy. Then he moves over to the ride cymbal, and he plays the same thing, but he's doing some accents here, which are super cool. On the last two beats, beats 5 and 6, you have those two 3-note chunks, 5E and 6E and. What's really cool is that you put an accent with your crash cymbal on the and of each beat. So 5E and 6E and. Oh man, it just adds a little bit more, a little more touch of life to the whole thing. Crash, crash. It makes it a little harder. It adds that touch of difficulty, a little more difficulty to the groove. But those accents are those little ear candy touches that Phil Collins was really great at. Just those little hits on the ends of two beats. I don't know, it adds a really nice flavor to this groove. And really, that's about it with this groove. Your feet are the backbone, the pulse of the groove. Your hands play the rhythm, sometimes with the hi-hat and the snare drum, sometimes with the ride cymbal and the snare drum, and even sometimes with your floor tom and the snare drum. Right before the verse starts, he goes to the floor tom and the snare. Throughout the song, he does it that way. So depending on what instrument you're on your kit, your hands are going to have a little bit of a harder time. Your floor tom is thuddier and has less rebound than your ride cymbal, than your hi-hat. So each part of your kit feels a little bit differently playing this groove. So even though it's a simple one-bar pattern, depending on where you are on your kit, changes the feel. So you have to kind of stay on it, concentrate, and stay in the moment throughout this song. And I guarantee you, if you get into it, it's a lot of fun to play. Okay, groove number 43, Watcher of the Skies from the Genesis record, Foxtrot, Phil Collins, playing a classic song and a classic groove. If you like what's going on here at Groovy Thursdays, I ask that you like this video, share it with all your friends, subscribe to the channel, bring on all the comments and suggestions for future grooves, and we'll see you here next week for groove number 44. Cheers.